And we are live. Welcome to Life Action Roleplay with
Cynthia Marie
Kai Norman
and Ryan Omega. We are actually live. This is surreal. Wow. So first of all, thank you for joining us here on twitch.tv/LifeActionRoleplay, where we're holding our first Life Action Roleplay as a talk show as well as a podcast. So you'll be able to find this podcast when it is completed within a few days on our various streams, anywhere that you can listen to our podcasts. And
Ryan, people are saying that they can't hear you.
oh, dear Lord, they can't hear me. Okay.
way to start our first.
Oh, wait. They've got you now.
Okay. Hold on. Let me turn off the additional echo from my own computer. Okay, so audio's good. These are things that we'll be dealing with as we do these talk shows. So thank you for bearing with us as we learn to live stream under lockdown. As per tradition, what is everybody drinking today?
Stella Rose Pink.
Nice.
Kai? I'm drinking, I guess, Mountain Dew from Taco Bell.
Very D&D of you. And I'm drinking water, but it is also spiked with plum sake.
Ooh, you just got fancy with that.
I did. I got a little bougie. Shout-outs. Any shout-outs that we want to give today? Let's start with Sin.
I have a very special shout out to my sister Lex. It is her 23rd birthday coming up on Saturday. So those of you in chat who know my sister, feel free to reach out and say happy birthday.
Awesome. Happy birthday, Lex.
Lex is awesome. Is it my turn for a shout out?
It is your turn, Kai, for a shout out.
For the way that I run DR NorCal, my head storyteller has announced that he's stepping down, he's changing career paths, and he's getting a grown-up job, which I am very, very proud of. But with him leaving, I've, with his help and also my other business partner, Tobias, we have been interviewing a bunch of people to basically kind of take over the job of Jason. Not exactly replacing him, because he can't directly perfectly replace and fill the hole of someone, but for them to take over and do their own things. And last week or two, we've been going through all of the applicants, and we had a lot of applicants, and it's been really hard picking people. And I know quite a few of those applicants listen to the podcast, and so I just want to say to each of you, I'm so grateful for all of you putting yourselves out there and putting the effort in, because you have made our lives infinitely more difficult, but in the best of ways, because now we have to pick all of you talented people, and it's been very difficult, so thank you.
Nice. My shout out is going to my roommate, Joe, because without Joe, we would not be able to do this podcast on live stream at all. After our lockdown, he just had the idea. It's like, hey, I could learn OBS. I could learn to do all of this. And he did this kind of on a whim. And I forgot that he has a computer programmer background. So he just set up cameras, set up computers that we weren't using. We have a green screen. We have a mini studio in our living room, thanks to Joe. And some of you may know Joe from Blank Slate. He plays the articulated Sasha 17, also known as the Timeless Trace. So awesome work, Joe. And the layout you're seeing now is actually his idea. So yeah, so kudos.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe, you technological wizard, you.
And for today's topic, our topic for our first live talk show is how to roleplay. And I realize that sounds very vague, but it's meant to encompass everyone from people who have always wanted to roleplay in a tabletop game, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons, in a LARP, or on stream, but were afraid to do so because they just didn't know how. But we're also addressing people who wanted to be able to better express their characters fully. If every time you've ever played a game and you go, oh, I wish I could have done that better, or I wish I could have I wish I could know how to play a more charismatic character, or how to play a monster, or how to play evil, or how to play anything, this is the place to talk. And because we are live, we can take questions and comments from chat directly. So this will be an experiment to see how this goes.
I'm super excited for this.
Oh, golly.
So to start off, let's start off with this question. Who is your favorite character to roleplay and why? Let's start off with Kai.
Me? Okay.
Yeah.
The character that I think I enjoyed the most. I've played in fantasy. I've played in vampire. I've played in some sci-fi stuff. And I've played in post-apocalyptic, and all of those have been a ton of fun. But I don't feel I really hit my stride in actually getting to play a character that I had to deliver a lot of personality into before. I mean, if you're playing your player character, it's kind of a long format. You're going on for a while, and you're building up your character over time in many games. The big baddie that I played for a whole year of Dystopia Rising NorCal, this kind of half undead soldier bad guy by the name of Commander Gasp. He had a cool skull mask and everything like that, and he went off on these like really sinister Bond villain style monologues, and he had a wonderful ability to just kind of he almost always just told the truth, and that inevitably, because players are players, often, you know, in the LARP you've got good guys and bad guys, and they're all a part of the community. They're all different characters. So my NPC would just kind of pick the bad things that the players had been, or sorry, the characters of town had been known to do, and just kind of remind people that they did that. And it won over a lot of people kind of being like, damn, he's a bad guy, but he's just telling the truth right now, and this is really uncomfortable. So I'd say him.
Nice. Sin, how about you?
Okay. LARP wise, I'm gonna be honest. I actually really enjoyed playing the princess in Twin Mask. She is also kind of a big baddie in the game. She is a somewhat of a teenager, pestilent child who is the daughter of the character named the Shrike, who is basically the queen, the empress of, yeah, you know, Kai, you know, no. Okay. So the reason why Kai is thumbs down is because the Shrike is like the be-all of the Nadine Empire, and Kai plays PC that is from the Nadine Empire, from the old family of the old Drawbins. I don't know a lot about the old Drawbins, except for the fact that
Rebels, basically. We were the rebels that died off and stuff, so when the magic brought us all back to life, we're still like, boo! And it's been fun.
And there it is. So I actually got to face off with one of the old Drawbins. Tobias came by the Nadine encampment and tried to have some sass with the Baron that was sitting with me, and I ended up sassing him back. So it was just fun to play this character that has been off screen for so long, and coming in on screen and people reacting to that situation was very like jarring and fun, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't too mean or evil, but like just played up the petulant child sort of view. So, and I learned something about the character that I didn't think would happen, but short story, I think I've talked about this before, but essentially people didn't bow their heads when I was walking by, and being the petulant child, I was just like, how come they're not bowing their head to me? And one of the guards leans over and they're like, do you want us to kill them, miss? And I was like, yes. I didn't know that like that would actually, and I like leaned over out of character. I was like, are you actually going to do that? He goes, yeah. And I was like, okay. But playing the big bad was a good time, just because it changed the dynamic for me with the player base.
Nice. For me, I think a lot of people who listen to the podcast would probably expect me to say the Archduke Sicariel of Paloma of Twin Mask, who's been there since game one, and the answer is partially right. I think in the earlier part of the game when there was a lot more risk and at least a lot more for my character to lose. And when they were a small encampment trying to become a big country, there were a lot of stands that my character had to take, knowing that his life is threatened even by other council members. So I absolutely loved a lot of that very heavy political role play. If you make the wrong move, you and your country will be killed. But just for funsies, actually would be Marion Tendo from DR NorCal. It was just
Cool character.
he is just such a fun character to play, hitting zombies with hammers that have the POW block on them, but also being a priest and being able to do small little narrative scenes trying to get people to their castle. So he's almost a life coach. And he's kind of like all the best parts of what I love playing. And oddly enough, maybe the only character who actually has like an actual romance of the many years I've been playing. And it's great.
Ryan, I have a
Yes.
feeling that you probably don't remember this off the cuff, but do you happen to remember the poem that you wrote the poem that you wrote for that character just before you brought him into game?
Oh, I know I wrote something. I don't remember.
Really good. And if I didn't, unfortunately, my phone is literally recording me right now. I would try and track it down, but at some point in time, we need to share that to people because it's so good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I do remember that was our inspiration point to just start our characters. And it definitely spelled a lot of, where he is and what he became. And he ultimately, I wanted to play a lawful good guy for once and actually hit things. And it was great.
Right on. We got a couple of questions in the chat right now.
Yeah, we do. You want to pick a question?
Yeah. I'll start with the first one, I think. I hope that's the first one. I'm sorry, chat, if it's not the first one, but this is from Band AV33. Hi, everyone. Longtime listener, first-time caller. My question is about RPing online. I missed a wave of online RP back in the day. Yo, that was a good tip there because that was a lot of fun back in the day. But this weekend, I'm going to be doing the DR SoCal online LARP. Yes. Any tips on how not to feel awkward in chat? Kai, do you help run DR?
Okay, so DR NorCal has not yet ran online games like SoCal is doing. So SoCal is definitely kind of trailblazing that format right now, and I'm really proud of what they've been doing. On my team, I've actually got Ryan as one of the people working on how we might approach NorCal. But when it comes to online roleplay, the less you say, the less you type out and things like that, the less you're going to be involved. If you want to be a wallflower and just observe, then you don't have to do that much. But the more you participate, the more you introduce yourself to people, the more you say, "Hey, I'm new." Even in character, say, "Hey, I'm new. What's the score? What's the deal with these bad guys running around in black armor trying to kill everyone? Or what's the deal with that giant glowing mushroom thing that hangs out outside the town?" Ask questions, engage people, and just kind of try to get to know people. Really, it's just kind of about like finding that little niche of area that you want to do. Cynthia kind of mentioned that when she was playing this princess character, as soon as she took that character from like behind stage onto the actual game area, her character started doing things that she did not initially predict, and that's true for a lot of us. When we play our first characters or play a character that we have made for the first time, there are going to be quirks and aspects of that character that we don't even see coming, and it just feels natural to roleplay it. And my encouragement is the more that you basically throw spaghetti at the wall and you experiment, the more you're going to find your stride with this character and get to actually play them and build them and things. So don't be afraid of being the new kid. If anything, it gives you the full agency to ask as many questions as you like. At least that's what I found.
Anything to add, Ryan?
Yes, I get anxiety on online chats where I can't see faces because I don't know when someone stops if someone else is going to go, or if it's my turn to go, or if they're in the middle of thought and they're going. So I kind of go, sometimes if I can't see faces. So a couple of things have helped those chats, and this is good for things in general on chat as well as gaming on chat. Number one, before you even start game, try to establish some ground rules of communication. One of them being uh, thing called lines and veils. There's going to, whenever you start a game, you should establish what parts you are not comfortable with, that are not okay to role play, and what's kind of a let's fade to black and let's kind of veer away from that. So that kind of communication is going to be important before you start. So this way you get away from awkwardness of topics you don't want to deal with. The other awkwardness thing that people deal with is trying to figure out when can they go. Um, it You definitely need a good mod who will make sure and pay attention to everybody chatting, and if someone's not chatting, that person goes, okay, what do you want to do, so that everyone is acknowledged. And last resort, if you feel like you need to go or there is something that you have an issue with, privately message your moderator so that you can express your concern, and then they can accommodate that concern into your gameplay.
Yeah. So I actually came from the online role-playing world. That's literally the first time I ever role-played was in Yahoo chat and AOL chats. Talked about this a while ago. Yeah, right. So the only thing that I would add to you guys is like when you're writing, I know a lot of people get uncomfortable writing. So write to the detail that you feel comfortable with. If you're a writer, like go for it and explain like everything in detail what your character looks like. It actually, to me, it helps the other people who are playing to understand what your character is or maybe what your character feels. If you're not comfortable with writing, then keep it short, but a good description of who you are and what you look like and what your demeanor might be towards those people will definitely help others engage with you in the chat.
Can I slide in for a second? Generally, different online role-playing chat rooms are going to handle things a little differently. I've seen some that involve specific like tags or brackets, like you might put parenthesis or asterisks around things that you declare as something, as an action that you're actually doing. Other people write it in third person, like such and such does this when you're describing your character do something. Others are more first person, or not even referring to the self. It's just like, puts cup down on table. Well, I'm hungry or thirsty. Fill my cup, that kind of thing. Pay attention to how other people are necessarily role-playing. And if there's a mix of them, pick the one that you feel most comfortable with. Otherwise, try to emulate that kind of first person, third person, or non-person kind of roleplay style in how you do it. Watch how other people are doing it and try to follow suit, as it'll help you kind of integrate a little bit, if that's your goal.
Yeah. Carrie, sorry I missed your question up at the top. So Carrie Kingdom asks, what was a character trait that you were initially nervous about playing, but eventually glad you chose? And in parentheses, any game, any character trait or quality? Ryan?
Leader. That was a noble leader. Was before I played Twin Mask, was actually a very difficult character type for me to play, because for the longest time I was far more comfortable playing support characters. Like I'll be the healer in the background. There's going to be more important people battling for top positions. I'll be the harpy in a vampire game, because I always thought that political roleplay was more interesting. But being in charge of something just has you dethroned. So I never aspired to play a leader type. In playing Sicario, it was odd because I didn't choose to be the leader. I just happened to have a certain set of skills and everyone listened to me. And I thought, okay, if I don't do this, everything's going to go to shit. So I just ended up doing that just to be helpful. But I'm glad that I did it because it bled over into my real life where I felt more confident being able to take charge of things, produce things, make shows like this.
Awesome. Kai, what about you?
I would say, so my character in Twin Mask, the same one that Cynthia was referring to, member of the rebels against the princess and the Shrike and things like that. When I first created that character, I expected him to be very much like Ramsay Bolton from Game of Thrones, and within a game or two, I realized that was an entirely different avenue that I did not want to play. And so I did a lot of to a degree, I role-played soul-searching with the character. He started trying out different religions, trying on different kind of personalities. He, at one point in time, fought more like a berserker, and now he's more like a fancy duelist that knocks weapons out of people's hands. But similar to Ryan with the leadership kind of idea, when I first created that character, I had no real intention for him to do any degree of public speaking. And routinely now, with Twin Mask growing in size, I've had times where, you know, there's a square full of 100 people and everyone's yelling and screaming. And there's vital information that people have either brought to me because I play now the captain of the guard, or it's something that I've learned and I need people to listen. And I'm really grateful for having this. One of my old jobs was working on a ship, like a sailing ship, and I took with me, I ended up having one of the ship's bells to keep, and pulling that thing out and ringing it really loudly to get everyone to turn around and look at me, and then actually deliver the information that I was trying to give. It was a little nerve-wracking when everyone's screaming, suddenly you ring the bell enough that it hurts your own ears, and then everyone's looking at you. That's kind of nerve-wracking, but it suddenly gives you that brief quiet moment for you to be heard and let people know. So it's proved useful, but I don't think I'm ever going to get over the idea of a ton of people looking at me expecting me to say things. And this comes from someone who, I mean, whenever I run Dystopia Rising NorCal, I'm standing up on a car or, you know, some kind of roof of a building or something, talking to all of the players and informing them about rules changes and safety issues. And it's always a little bit nerve-wracking, but I'm always glad I did it. I hope that counts. I don't know.
I guess for me, I play a lot of NPCs in LARP right now. I actually really don't even have a PC at the moment, so I'm going to pick a lot of the NPCs that I play. Sorry. But so one of the NPCs that I do play is a ferryman by the name of Lynx, and she is this very old ways druid type looking character, and these type of characters know a lot about the world. And when I first started being a ferryman, I didn't know enough, at least that I felt comfortable interacting with players. So a trait that I ended up picking up as the character was actually not talking to people in the waking realm. So if you've ever interacted with my ferryman, she does a lot of sort of sounds when anyone asks a question. I do my best to answer, but not in the voice, mainly because I was really initially scared to say the wrong thing to someone. But eventually I was happy that I chose this because it made my interactions with people who were playing the death game even more impactful. Because they only hear my voice in the death realm. They don't actually hear it in the waking. So yeah, that was my little bit, my little trait that I chose.
Nice. We have a question from Z Bradshaw.
I love this question.
It's a good question. I had to think about it. Mm-hmm. When it comes to playing these bad characters, how do you balance being evil and playing to these characters' natural tendencies while making them fun to interact with for players? Such a good question. Kai, go first.
Okay. So number one rule, whether you're playing a mustache twirling villain that's an NPC that's, you know, there to, for a degree, lose, or if you're playing an antagonistic character, play for story, play to lose. If you're fighting the hero of the story, you shouldn't, if you're playing a character that's actively a bad guy, you know your character is a bad guy. You know your character is a butthole. You know your character is the kind of person to stab someone in the back in the middle of a dark alley and run away with all of their money. Is that fun? Well, maybe for you a little bit, but how fun is it for someone else getting stabbed in the back? Okay, maybe you can spice it up a little bit. You leave clues so someone can try and catch up with you and have that opportunity for that kind of, oh, you did this to me kind of thing. And, it creates good story. If you picture your bad guy, your villain, as the antagonist or the foil to the hero in a story, you're not your own story. You're not the anti-hero of the movie. You're playing in someone else's story. And that means that it shouldn't be easy for this other character that is your character's foil or nemesis to win. You should definitely chat with them out of character and try and negotiate that to make sure that we have a good story. But sometimes that isn't always an option. Other times when you're playing a big bad NPC in a story, you don't really get the opportunity kind of stomping out into the middle of a game environment dressed as a giant big flaming demon. You don't get to really navigate as many scenes as carefully with people, but generally people do understand, oh, that's a giant burning demon with bat wings. I don't think I'm going to be able to have a friendly interaction with them. So when they rush at you with a sword, they're already kind of consenting to getting knocked around a little bit or not. But I feel that the best kinds of stories when you're a villain is try to give people a challenge, but don't try to just obliterate people. It's the same kind of concept of playing in a D&D game. If you're running the D&D game as a dungeon master, sure, you can make a mountain fall on all the players' heads and you win. But as a dungeon master, you're not trying to win. You're trying to tell stories. And so I think if you keep that in mind, that's the best tool for playing a good bad guy.
I would add, depending on the type of villain, like Kai was saying, and I'll relate it more towards if you're playing a human race where it's a social villain versus maybe a more not a human race. I don't know what the word is right now. I can't think of it. Sorry. But that
giant monsters or something.
Yeah, sure. That is the obvious evil one. Like I've had the opportunity of playing both, and to be honest with you, playing the big terrifying demon that walks in and everybody's sword is literally pointed at you, like that was so much fun. And so to answer the question, like how do you balance that evil, playing that big crazy one, at least for me, I didn't. I succumbed to the full on evil. Like I knew my character was going to die no matter what. I wanted to give the most cinematic ending that character could possibly have. I had a lot of hit points and I was up against probably more than half the town. And the one person who came up to me who did this epic fireball sort of thing and was like ready to rip my heart out was a celestial angel type character. Like how cool is that for the angel to take out the demon's heart? So I was like, all right, this is how I go down. Like this is the thing. And I let out like the biggest scream so that character could have that like moment of like, I'm the big damn hero. So depending on what kind of character you're playing as a baddie, you can have epic moments like that. So you make sure, again, like what Kai was saying, it's like, it's not our story to win. It's their story to win. So letting them have that really awesome ending and feeling good about what they did is cool. Then when you have the social kind of characters where there is more of that social manipulation, I think it's fun to be the more subtle villain, like Kai was suggesting. So I think it just depends on like what that character really is and how much balance you do have to have.
For me, I was going to tackle this in the, if you're playing an evil PC, the rule that I would have if you're playing an evil PC is pick one flaw that you're going to go to the nth degree with, whether it's corruption or wrath or something, just something particularly heinous, but stick to A, that one flaw, and B, make sure you have a reason why you have this one flaw. Come up with a backstory so that it doesn't just become my goal is to conquer the world. Why? Because I want to conquer the world. There's no negotiation or depth in that. But if you go, I want to conquer the world. Why? It's because I grew up very poor and I know what it's like to not have anything. That automatically makes your evil PC interesting, because then you now have other motivations that might be megalomaniac in one place, but you'll have a richer time interacting with someone who might go, okay, I'm going to help you, and just be open to having flaws that can be negotiated with, rather than flaws that will just dominate your character that have no reason and make your character and PC very flat.
Can I slip in for a sec?
Sure.
A really good way of trying to spot those flaws, or even some of the traits of the why, because a couple of episodes ago we did a really good episode about background crafting, and it's very much diving into the why of what you do. And the more you like your story of why, the easier it will be for you to lean on that as an asset when you tell a story or react a certain way. Let's pick 3 supervillains: Dr. Evil, Thanos, and Magneto. Yes, I like Marvel. But so Dr. Evil is just completely off the, like he's a crazy, silly character that really isn't designed to win at all. And he's just weird and eccentric, and sometimes you're kind of rooting for him, maybe. I don't know. Thanos wants to make the place a better world, or he wants to make everywhere less aggressive by, unfortunately, wiping out half of everyone. Magneto, on the other hand, has been persecuted his whole life for how he was born and what he is, be it like his actual descent, like him being Jewish, or him being a mutant. He's been persecuted his whole life, and he is very much shaped by the environment around him. So many people have been calling him evil and trying to kill him that he decided, you know what, no more. I'm just going to embrace it and make everyone afraid of me. And all of those characters are very different and have a different scope and direction for their evil.
Cool. We have another question here. A question by Mox Ruby. A lot of the newer generation of people, myself included, come to LARP from the world of tabletop. What are your hints for people who are longtime D&D or RPGers, but haven't yet dipped their toes into live action? Sin, would you like to answer this question first?
This is a hard one. I'm not a long-time tabletopper, so it wasn't that difficult for me to slip in, especially being a performer. But transitioning from like tabletop and live, it really just jump in and do it. It's tough to say that, but like once you're there and you're fully immersed into the character, and the first person that comes up to you, it's really easy to ask the question, like Kai said earlier, hey, what's going on here? I'm new. You just hope that you pick a person who's willing to show you around, or at least point you in the direction to talk to that right person. So Kai, you say something.
2 important things I think are really useful. The first is consent. Knowing if you go to a LARP and someone else is at the LARP, unless they give you clear body language or messages where their character is not comfortable role-playing with your character, if they don't know you, everyone is consenting to at least some degree of interaction. If you and I are both sitting down, and I've used this analogy before, if we're all sitting down around a table and there's a board game in the middle of the table, the general agreement is everyone's there to play the board game. Same principle in the LARP. Everyone's there to LARP, which means that it's up to you how strongly you engage people. I would suggest taking things a little slow and a little careful, but try to remind yourself and give yourself a little bit of confidence that everyone, including you, is there to play a game together and have fun. And it's not as badass as the Batman-style lone wolf, I'm a badass and I'm so trapped with my inner turmoil, I don't talk to anyone. As cool as that is in movies and comic books, it doesn't work in LARP because you just don't talk to anyone, and then you don't have any fun. So definitely interact with people, and remind yourself that because someone is at LARP, they are consenting to the idea of playing with other people, and that gives you that kind of permission internally to go up to a stranger and say, "Hi, how are you doing? I don't know what's going on," or "What's that crazy thing?" or however you want to frame it, so long as you're respectful and nice about it. The other step, I think, is costume. The coolest thing, in my opinion, starting out with LARP is costume. If you have a passion for costuming, you're already there. Like, you're already knee deep in it. If you enjoy the idea of costuming, you're going to start out, not looking like the exact perfect self that you want to be most of the time, and that's okay. You've played like an MMORPG, and your character is wearing practically rags when they come into like game level 1. But by the time you're, max level or fighting raids, your character has, shoulder pads the size of ships. So you get the idea. You can upgrade your costume over time, but the important thing is you should feel comfortable in your costume. If you're not comfortable showing off your midriff, don't do it. It doesn't matter if it's appropriate for the character. Until you reach that comfort level, don't do it. Because the separation between your comfort level and the character's comfort level is a really hard thing to divide when it comes to things that are encroaching on your personal comfort level. If it's the other way around, where it's a character is uncomfortable with something that you as a player are comfortable with, that gives you a lot of freedom. The other way around, it doesn't. You're kind of trapped by the fact that no matter how much your character might enjoy it, you don't, and you're not going to be able to deliver a believable action for that. So make a cool costume that you feel empowered by. It's the same idea of like going out in the street and like wearing the clothing that you want to wear. You're not wearing it for anyone else. You're wearing it because you want to express yourself or something about yourself, or maybe if you're role-playing, express something about your character. So cool costume, feel empowered by it, and remind yourself that everyone is there to play, and that means you're allowed to talk to people, you're allowed to interact with people, and most people are understanding of that and nice about it. Once in a while you might meet someone who's a bit of a poop head about that. It doesn't happen all that often. If it does, find someone cooler, interact with them instead, and then steer clear of the other person. I took way too long on that, sorry.
Okay. I would say what I see in tabletop players in their struggle to deal with LARP has to deal with almost the video game mentality going into LARP. And that is, when you're sitting down at a tabletop, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or Cypher or Vampire, usually you look at your skill set, your abilities, and you treat your NPCs as tools, because ultimately you're trying to get to the goal. And if it's not functional, then that thing is not worth anything to you. In LARP, that is only half of your character. The other half of your character that you must develop is relationships. So much of LARP is relationships, because you don't ever role play alone. Whether it's a relationship with the blacksmith and promising to and paying them money for a supercharged weapon, or a relationship with the healer who's going to heal you, and in exchange you defend them. And it's important to note that, because if you don't, the end result is we get murder hobos, because they're used to the idea of killing off characters that don't produce anything, rather than treating them as people that you must interact with. So I would say, if anything, one of the things that has been helpful for newer players is to maybe, if they have a friend, find a connection with their friend, whether it's a relation, whether it's old rivalries, some kind of relationship that automatically sucks you into the world and gives you that perspective. And I guarantee you'll have a richer experience knowing that something is grounding you rather than a list of spells or a list of or your equipment. It's because you get to interact with that person, and usually at afters, that's the person that you'll end up talking to and hanging out. It's like, hey, do you remember that one thing? Because you had a relationship in character. We got another question from Blue Feline. And the question is, what do you look for in a new character to flesh them out? Let's go with Sin.
What do I look for in a new character to flesh them out?
I'm assuming creation of a new character, I think.
Yeah. No, honestly, I think it's their fashion, like just the way they look and the way they dress. I think that helps me flesh out that person's ideology and their purpose. I think when I play Nellie G, being a fashionista sort of deal, it really helped me to figure out how she acted, like having the long hair and flipping the long hair and having that like sort of attitude is really what kind of like started pulling that character together. So I would say the fashion, the costuming. Yes.
Kai?
One of the easiest tricks, I think, to get a character to just start to have a little bit of a flesh out, and I do this a lot when I'm playing just kind of one-off NPCs. I pick a couple of things that my character likes in the world. Usually that resorts to it being like a certain nation of people or a certain type of person, like lizard men or things like that. And then you pick one thing that your character is afraid of or uncomfortable around or somewhat hostile to, as in like, I don't want to talk to you, don't you know all half dragons eat people kind of thing. Have a light prejudice, not a heavy one, just a light prejudice, and then two things that you're much more amicable and favorable to, and then kind of come up with a reason why. And it might be something as, obvious as like, oh, my village, like my mother was eaten by a dragon or something like that. But the more you kind of come up with a little bit of an interesting aspect on that to just flesh out a character, the more you will give it that extra spark, I think. Yeah. It's a good starting point, I've always found.
For me, if I have the ability to read the settings for certain worlds, then I can develop a build off of that. So in an upcoming show that premieres tomorrow on Gilding Light called Zyra, I was asked what to play in this new Cypher system game. And I looked through all of the different peoples, and I kind of came up with what's a character that I wouldn't normally play, but would just be fun. If he died right away, I would have fun playing this guy. And I decided to go for a hick dwarf who is a brewmaster and has a pet chinchilla that gets into all sorts of trouble. Regardless of what happens, I'm going to have fun playing this. And if he dies, then I'll come up with the concept. But this is the guy that I'm going to play, and he has this really hard accent, which I'm not going to do right now because it takes a lot of effort. But I played him in session 0, and so many people love the pet chinchilla. We're keeping him. and we're going to try to come up with some fun antics, and just kind of going for it sometimes is the best response.
If I haven't missed anyone else, I think the next one is by Z Bradshaw again.
Yep, I see that. Go for it, Kai.
Yeah, I don't see any other ones. I hope I didn't miss anyone. So reaching out and getting groups involved and working together for things like research projects, big town fights, tense political meetings, etc., can be difficult. What is your process on getting people to buy into and engage with the things you're wanting to run for a game? Tagging onto that, how do you bring new players into the fold and help them be a part of a wider narrative?
I always struggled with. I'm interested to hear what you guys say, because I struggle with this as a player. It's very frustrating for me, so I would love to hear what y'all say.
I almost have to do this as Sicarial all the time, and it's actually for me, it was easy, because he being the Archduke or the Duke of the land, owning the port city, he kind of go around and just kind of point and go, I need you for this. And oddly enough, that's usually enough to get them involved. And for me, sometimes that's just a throwaway gesture, but sometimes my character needs escort. So I'll go, escort me to the arena, please. And this way I can at least chat with them, figure out like, what do they want to do? Is it something, would they like to do something? And then I would get shout outs for just them doing me a favor. I'm like, oh, okay. That was strange. I wasn't expecting that. But it's because I just kind of pointed at somebody, even if I didn't know them. Now, sometimes my character will get assassinated for this, but that's the game I play.
But he got better.
Huh?
He got better after being assassinated for it.
Huh? I got better. Poison gets it, wears its course. I also realized that's actually sometimes difficult, where you just point out randomly to kind of go, hey, you, do this thing, because some people might fear, oh my God, that's rude, or that's very assuming. But usually I think about the bystander effect, which is when you see a whole group of people doing nothing, they kind of subconsciously think that everything is fine. But the moment you actually point at someone and go, you do this, someone like, oh, okay, I'm on it. Sometimes a little direction is good. Do it from the point of not you're serving me, just more let me figure out how to improve your role play more. And I could sort of tell by body language, like, if that will work.
I've got nothing. Like I said,
Okay. So part of Z Bradshaw's, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, question, I think I could either take it as in like someone actually running a game, or trying to do their own little mini event within the game. For example, if you want to have luncheon with all of the nobles as your character, and you invite people and you bring tea, that's an event within an event. So getting people to buy into that can be a little tricky sometimes, but so long as you kind of have that initial rapport with people, you can invite them and see if they actually want to do it, and test the waters. When it comes to running a game, it is vastly different. Sometimes you will have the coolest stories around, and you put them out into the world, and the NPC comes back half an hour later, and you're like, who did you talk to? And they're like, I don't know, no one really. I tried to talk to this guy, he said he was busy. I tried to talk to that guy. She said I'm not interested in that. And then some player came around and stabbed me and buried my corpse. And resurrected me as a zombie, and I had to spend like 10 minutes running around attacking people as a zombie. Players never do what you expect them to. Sometimes that can be wonderful and beautiful. Other times it can be definitely a little maddening, but that's kind of par for the course. I don't like it when people intentionally try to do something that I won't predict, as I think that's a little disruptive. But I'm perfectly fine with people to do things that I don't anticipate. And I think a good way of managing that kind of thing is, thinking on your feet, reacting to things. But when it comes to preparing content that you want to deliver, creating a story, you have to have a degree of, shall we say, a thick skin. You have to kind of separate your ego a little bit from what you create. Which, when it comes to people who are like us, writers, artists, costumers and everything like that, we put a lot of effort into our work that we put out there. So for some people, it can be very challenging if you put your heart and soul into a cool plot, you make a really cool prop, and you do all of this stuff, and for some reason, it might be your fault, it might be, someone else's fault, or it might be no one's fault. It might just be random happenstance. Something bad happens, or the players don't quite catch the plot, or something, it doesn't happen the way you want it to. And either you're upset about it, or you feel guilty about it, or various types of things. There's a lot of ways you can feel after something doesn't hit the mark. And as a content creator, you have to kind of steel yourself to the idea that no matter how hard you try on making something amazing for someone, you still have to be prepared for someone to either rationally or sometimes irrationally kind of take a shit on it. Sometimes they do it intentionally. Other times they don't intend to, and they just come up to you and they give you their opinion, and they weren't exactly nice about it. And you do have to just kind of prepare yourself for that potential. And it doesn't make you one way or the other on that. I don't think it makes you or them a bad person. But you do have to understand that when you're making a game for 50 or 100 or 250 people, you can't make a single flavor that everyone will like. So being prepared for that, I think, is a really important thing. The second part of that was what are your good ways of helping new players and bringing them into the fold and getting them involved in story? How do you guys do that?
Getting people involved?
Yeah, like new players. Ryan actually mentioned his way of just like coming up to people and being like, I have authority, here is a job, you're going to go do it now. And it usually works out pretty well.
I like to play the naive approach of, I really need your help, can you come over here, sort of a deal. I like it. To me, I find it very interesting, and this may not be the popular opinion, but I find it very interesting between seeing a male get people engaged and a female getting engaged. Like, I think it lends itself to be different tactics and trying to get people involved, in my opinion. I've seen much more success with the males being like, hey, you come here, hey, you come here, versus like if you see a woman like, hey, you come here, they're gonna be like, what, like what. So it's just been an interesting experiment that I've been watching NPCs and how people get them engaged. But the way I do it is by playing that cute naive character of like, I don't know what I'm doing, can you please come here and help me? And it seems to get a better draw. So
what I've noticed, at least on my end, was not so much gender as it was class. So if someone dressed really well and went, hey, you do this, I saw more response than if someone dressed in really shabby clothes, because then it's like, why are you approaching me and why do you smell? That's the perspective that I've seen. It almost looks like if I'm dressed poorly, I have nothing to offer. But if I'm dressed well, obviously I'll be compensated.
But do you think that's an assumption on players' behalf? Because I've played a beggar type that has a lot of money, and if that's the assumption, then you've just lost on a game. So how do you overcome those sort of assumptions?
I guess it depends on the character. Certain characters are just not going to overcome those assumptions, but other characters will, because it's written into their backstory. Now, I will have a bias because playing the person that owns a town is going to have a very different perspective on things. But when I play, I was about to say tiefling. When I play my demon character Contaboss, he has no money. So whenever I approach anyone asking them to do anything, they're much more reticent because they don't realize that I can just kill things by just pointing at them. Otherwise, I just look like a hot mess. So, but he's a fun hot mess. He's Garfield as a demon. He'll sleep during battle and eat bread. So it's fine.
What do you think, Kai?
So once again, I have a couple of answers to this because I don't know how to shut up. As a player character, when I'm running like the town guard, for example, I've provided a loose opportunity for players who want to play good guy cop style characters in a cops and robbers kind of environment. They have the agency to come up to me and be like, hey, I'm new here, I want to join the town guard. And I can be like, great, here's some money, here's a uniform, or here's a badge, go out, fight crime, do the thing. And that can be kind of empowering for people. It isn't always the case, and obviously that only approaches a player wanting to play in that kind of style. So when I know a person out of character and I'm trying to bring them into game, I will try and work out some kind of reason or justification for them camping with me or hanging out with me a bit and things like that. So I can, kind of have my friend under my wing a little bit. They have the freedom to go out and do things if they want. Otherwise, they can stick around with me and get into the shenanigans that I get into. So I feel like if you bring a friend to game, or you invite someone to game, or in general, if you benefit from like a referral bonus in a game from someone, you should put the effort into making sure that they enjoy their first game.
Oh yeah.
I hear far too many stories of people showing up and just basically kind of like kicking them in the deep end, like shoving them out in the nest and go like, "You're here, great. Where's my referral? Okay, thank you, bye," and they just take off.
Yeah, that rule about using people as tools is not a good thing. I want to quickly acknowledge friends who rolled dice who came in raiding into this chat. Thank you so much. To just briefly catch you up on things, first of all, welcome to Life Action Roleplay, where our topic is how to roleplay, and we're addressing all different types of roleplay, whether it's roleplaying on tabletop for your first time, or roleplaying in a LARP, which is what we specialize in, or even roleplaying on stream. And we're open to any kinds of questions. So if you have a question that you would like to ask us, we're here and we'll be happy to answer. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to acknowledge, hey, this is a thing.
No, it's awesome. We got more people watching and involving. I'm super excited about seeing how many people are watching. It's pretty cool. Where was I? What was the question again?
I'm sorry, my drink has been spiked with plum sake, so I'm trying to.
I'm just spacey too.
That's okay.
Okay, how to get new players involved and things like that.
Yes.
So I have at NorCal, and I'm very grateful for it, and as an event runner, I highly recommend this. If you're an event runner, you should consider doing this, because every video game has like that brief tutorial stage. Every MMO has like the little newbie area and things like that. And it shouldn't be like, "Oh, you're so sweet, pat, pat, pat," and like be like belittling or patronizing to new players. In the game that I run, I have a team of storytellers that are entirely dedicated to providing adventures for players in their first 3 games. They make a point of getting to know them. They interact with them. When those players start their first game, they get pulled to the side, they get taught the rules, and then they get to go and do their own little adventure where they earn some loot on their own with other new players and get to kind of, cut their teeth on the game a little bit. And that is not uncommon in a LARP. What happens after that is usually in LARPs, they just kind of go, "All right, well, you did that thing," and then they kick you out of the nest, and they expect you to do as best you can. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. In order to get players more invested in the wider narrative, however, I think a really good trick that my team has come up with, and this isn't something that I we picked people to do this, and we didn't give them the specific ideas. We were just like, we need to start brainstorming good methods. So I'm not saying this is my personal idea, but this is something that works really good for my game. On those little mini missions that the players experience on their new games, give them some information that helps the bigger worldview. We've had times where players have, in town, the players have found a big gun and it needs a special type of ammo. And the players who are new come into town with this big ammo box. And they're like, "We don't know what the hell to do with this." And now the existing higher level characters need to cooperate with these lower level characters for a larger narrative. And it doesn't have to be something as obvious as a big ammo box or a MacGuffin. But if you give new players, something that is important to the story, work around it. So be prepared for the idea that those players might never do anything with it. But in general, if you can encourage that and instill the game into that way, it works out really well. Additionally, having later in the game another adventure or maybe 3 adventures a game for those characters that are in the first 3 games, for them to kind of follow on this little storyline that they're doing. It definitely gets people to kind of, I like to refer to it as the buy-in. The more the players feel that they're actually kind of shifting the world, changing and impacting the world, the more that they really enjoy it. And then because you're rewarding them with that world change that they've just accomplished, they can point at something in the story and go, I did that. That's what gets people more engaged in the story and makes them feel like they actually have sway over this world.
Since we're getting close to the end of our show, and thank you for everyone who has just come in or has been watching since the beginning, let's leave with one tip that we can tell the audience to improve someone's role play. It's up to you who wants to start. You know what? Let's just go with Sin. Do you have a tip for the audience to help improve their role play?
Just be all in when you can. So yes, and the heck out of your experiences. It'll always make you think better.
Kai.
Consider or communicate with other players about what's to refer to it. You want to lift up your fellow players. Sometimes a lift isn't literally lifting, or like, hey, I want to help you move up. If someone's playing a character that actually wants to go through the turmoil of like people mistreating them because they're a dirty peasant or they're kind of leprous and they want people to like be a little mean to them, that's lifting them if they consent to it. Finding out what a player is looking for as an experience, and then finding something you can maybe do to help them have a better experience is a lift. And learning what people are looking for in lifts is a really, really healthy, fun way of people enjoying it, because you can share your lifts. And that means, for example, I'm the captain of the guard. Obviously, solving crime and dealing with things that other characters set on fire and cause problems with is a lift for me. Like, it's what I created the character for. So engaging my character in that way is how you more often not will engage my character. So, you know, working that out, or even just talking with someone out of character about it, can be really insightful and really fun too.
My tip would be make bold choices, because whether you succeed or fail, you have a story to talk about and you're still alive. Because some of the best stories that I can tell at afters, which is like when people just hang out after a game, usually at a place like a Denny's or a Norm's, is sometimes I did this really big thing, but I failed really, really hard. But then afterwards, we get to just laugh about it. It's like, my God, I really fucked that up. But if you also succeed, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe it, because you and I and you, we all cooperate together and we almost didn't make it, but we made it. So revel in your successes with the friends that helped you get there. And if you failed, know that you have a story to tell, but you're still alive. And sometimes I hear about failure stories much longer than successes, which tells me that you had a good time, hopefully.
In movies, you have an element of storytelling called the fall, and it's a certain part of a movie where the hero is kind of rising and getting awesome and super cool, and then the big bad guy shows up and kicks his ass. And then they have to do that like Rocky scene of like a montage of like training back and like healing and getting better, and then they go on the rise again, and then that victory after they have failed the first time is far more impactful. Sometimes it's not the victories that define your character. You can actually be kind of surprised that sometimes it's the trying to deal with and survive the failures of your character that actually really define what type of person your character is. And it can really take you by surprise. It's really cool, I think.
I do want to acknowledge this one comment here by 3000 Platify. Yes, make a bold choice. I struggle with that sometimes because anxiety, but such a good advice. I also can get anxiety even in the middle of roleplay. I could have been roleplaying for years and I will still get anxiety when I'm in the middle of a situation. So I completely understand and identify with this. But sometimes you'll just feel it in your guts, like the right thing to do is not sometimes the easy thing to do. And even if it's hard to do in life, you get the opportunity to be heroic in a role play. And some people feel anxious because they don't want to be the center of attention. But sometimes your friends want to lift you. Like they realize this is your time. We want to give you that opportunity. So know that like that anxiety you feel is fuel for your performance, not a reason to hold you back.
Ryan, often I hear for that referred to as sharing the spotlight.
Yes. Share the spotlight.
On the tip of anxiety, because I also struggle with it, and I struggled hard last year with it. All three of us struggle from it, literally. So advice on that is to find something that grounds you. I tend to either have something in my hand that I can hold onto and squeeze. I have a pole arm that I fight with that's nice and squishy that I can squeeze onto. But if it becomes really, really bad, it's okay to disengage and walk away from the situation and go find someone who grounds you. I have my sister who helps ground me. So whenever I'm going through a problem, it's very easy to go grab her and sit down and kind of breathe through the situation. So just make sure that when you are doing the big, bold thing, if it is too much for you, like it's okay to step down. Please remember that. Please, please, please.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was important.
We have
Never should you ever just kind of like grit your teeth and bear through a scene that makes you on your personal level, not your character, makes you uncomfortable or you find reminds you of something that's happened to you or a friend or something like that. If you find a situation in a role play that you are like, I can't handle this, don't try to stick it out. You are perfectly allowed to just drop out of character and say, hey, I'm sorry, I need to step out of this. This is too much. And you don't have to justify yourself to anyone. You can just step away and take a moment. And it doesn't mean that you're escaping consequence in game, but you're prioritizing your emotional well-being over the actions of your character. If your character is being tortured, great, you can do that. Fade to black, my character was tortured. You don't have to sit there and scream while someone pretends to pull your fingernails out, unless you, as a player, want to.
Side note, that stuff is cathartic, though, just putting it out there.
I mean, in the end of the day, hopefully you end up becoming friends with the people that you roleplay with. And none of us want you to have a miserable time role-playing games. That's why we play games, because it's fun, not because we're putting you through some horrible torture. Unless you want that torture, then we'll give it to you. But when you don't, we don't want you to suffer. We want you to have a good time. That's why we play games.
New players should always lean more towards being good guys or neutral rather than bad guys. If you're gonna be a bad guy, pick someone that you trust as your rival. If you've got a friend that is close to you and you are comfortable talking with on an out-of-character level, they make some of the best enemies and rivals for your character because you trust them to know your boundaries, and it is a two-way street in that. Being like this evil villain to someone who doesn't know you can very easily make that person think that you in real life are being mean to them because you do not like them as a person. It's called bleed. So always communicate with people either before or after. If your character was a dick to someone, do the dick thing and then immediately drop out of character and be like, hey, are you okay? I know my character's an asshole. I just want you to know that that wasn't real.
On that note, it's time to wrap up. So let's check in with everybody. Sin, where can they find you on social medias and what projects do you have coming up?
Oh, I have a lot coming up, but before we do that, do we want to mention our patrons?
Oh, yes. So during this time of lockdown, having a Patreon supporters has been incredibly helpful in order to continue making content, especially now that we're on this bold new venture of having live stream talk show. This is our very first live stream talk show because we've been a podcast in the past. We've been very grateful that we reached a milestone recently of 20,000 downloads, making us one of the bigger LARP podcasts out there, and that's amazing, and we could not have done that without you. And as we get into like investing into some like equipment here, we're going to continue making content while we are still in isolation. Hopefully everyone is still safe here, and you can support us at the Patreon called Life Action Roleplay. Want to thank some of our major supporters, including Eyes of Petra. Thank you, Talon Hack Bowler, to Aaron Ludlow, Fei Liang, Sam Sanchez, and my brain is blanking out. Geeky Teas. I know there are others, and I apologize. I don't have the list in front of me. But,
Mask?
huh?
Twin Mask?
And Twin Mask. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for your continued support during this time. Sin, socials, and what are you up to?
Socials. Twitter is at Sin Dancer, and Instagram is Cynthia__Marie. That is 2 underscores. Golly, new projects. I've actually been writing and doing a lot of video editing, so hopefully I'll be putting some stuff out on the social medias. I've been playing back again with Sirens, so look out for our pop-up sort of things. And I will also be on another show in Gilding Light. We haven't announced it yet, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But stay tuned. And if anybody was curious, Vampire LA by Night is coming back for season 5. We just don't know exactly when because of quarantine and all that stuff. So stay tuned for everything. I think that is pretty much at least everything that I could talk about now.
Kai.
Well, my socials are Yokai Props on Instagram and Twitter. If you're on the feed right now, you can see my information like about there, I think. So that's how you reach me. I run Dystopia Rising Northern California. You can find that on the website, Dystopia Rising NoCal, not NorCal, NoCal. Don't ask, it's a long story why. But so that's how you find me and things like that. In terms of projects, I've mostly been kind of doing a lot of my leatherworking and just kind of keeping my head down. But if you join the Facebook page for Dystopia Rising, we are actively working on developing our online aspect of the LARP. So keep your eyes peeled there, and that's a good way to try out if you haven't tried it out before. Or if you're one of our NorCal people, you can give it a whack and we can have some fun stories. So.
All right, and I also have a lot of stuff, so bear with me. So, so tomorrow will be the premiere of the new show Zyra, which is a cipher show system from the head of Alice Cleaver. It shows on Gilding Light at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm so excited to role play with this group. We had our session 0 was an incredible amount of fun. I play a stone-fold dwarven ale master with a pentagilla with nothing to lose. Beer cheese. And Mondays, I play on Scabby Rooster, twitch.tv/Scabby Rooster, Total Party Kills, which is a reverse dungeon crawl where the monsters are the PCs, where I play a beholder sorcerer named Cathexor, also known as the hashtag buttholder because of his very big butt, and his capacity to collect games. Tuesdays on Scabby Rooster, I have a new version of Blank Slate where we're trying different experiments while we're not a LARP. We're mostly a LARP show, but we're trying different experiments. And so the next 2 weeks are going to be a challenge of creating a role-playing game or a game in 2 hours, and then the next week playing that game. And so I'm still trying to find people who are willing to rise up to that challenge. And then we're going to see what happens. You're going to do it from scratch, so we're going to see what happens. And next Wednesday, here on Life Action Roleplay is Tarot and Talk, the metaphysical show, where we talk about different metaphysical topics. And my guest next week will be Cynthia Marie, and we'll be talking about angels and angelic powers. And that will be on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Here on Life Action Roleplay. I have a 5-day week.
Ryan,
Yes.
Are you allowed to say who else is on that new show with you?
Oh, you mean in Zyra? Yes. So it's run by Alice Cleaver, as I had mentioned before. It's an interesting collaboration between Gilding Light, which is run by Satine Phoenix, and the Scraticus Academy, which is run by Scraticus. And they're teaming up together to run a Cypher type game. And my castmates also include Thea from Cognitive Merchant, that makes like those amazing leatherwork. And Thea is like the leather worker for that. Mackenzie De Armas, who is a prolific tabletop role player and writer, as well as Kiana Shaw, who is also a prolific role player. Great, great ladies to role play with. We had an incredible time. I cannot wait for tomorrow.
Sounds awesome.
Yay! So thank you for joining us here at Life Action Roleplay. If you have ideas for topics, we are open to topic ideas. And thank you for your interaction with questions. This is our first time dealing with questions. So again, thank you. They were great questions, by the way. I'm just rambling until we just kind of figure out how to end things. But the way we normally go by is just kind of go, bye!
Bye.